All right, we are officially on the Zoom recording, and welcome to, what is this, week 3, technically, the 4th meeting, because we met for a week before Lent began, so we're into week 3. And welcome to those in person and those participating online, Margaret and others who might be watching later as we continue to move toward Lent. So let's share a prayer as we begin our time together today. Well, God, we begin with a sense of anticipation that you are with us and that we are with you in this season as we move into the next few weeks before Holy Week. May we find ways to slow down and seek you more fully in our lives and in our work and in our play. In your name we pray. Amen. So indeed, the topic for today is about slowness. So technically, this is an invitation to fast from speed and rushing, and an invitation to embrace slowness and pausing.
Sorry, and we love
So maybe we should just start with like 10 minutes of just sitting quietly. Actually, that's about what we'll do. We'll spend a lot of time just kind of slowing down today, because I think this is indicative for a lot of us. I remember early on, Marcia, you said some of the stuff doesn't seem to fit quite the same way once you retire, and I wonder if this is a week that you feel like you are not always distracted by busyness, but I think a lot of the world is. I think a lot of the world is absolutely. Well, she writes kind of in the introduction how we kind of hold busyness as a trophy, to say we're busy, then we're productive. And if we're productive, then we're worthwhile, right? We matter. And we can then be seen in a different light. I don't know if you've ever heard that conversation, and I've done this too. Folks will ask, well, how are you doing? I was like, oh, I'm so busy. Yeah. And we don't say it as please pray for me. But instead we say, I'm pretty important because people want me to do stuff. I mean, it's like busyness means we have some level of value. I want to read a quote. Actually, I just read this chapter that she's quoting from on the airplane on the trip last week. Have you all heard the book from Nicole Arthur Riley?
That was part of slowing down, you see.
Yes, it was on an airplane. It was. I feel like when I sit for 3 hours, I don't have anything else to do, then I can actually, slow down a little bit. So now, physically, I'm not very slow in my space, relative slowness. But Cole Arthur Riley has written a book called This Here Flesh, and I'm reading that book, and our author today quoted her, and I want to read a section of that quote. Arthur Riley says, our societies and communities have a way of grinding up and serving out dignity in portions based on our own human ideals and idols. In the history of the white Western world, you can trace a perversion of dignity in the name of usefulness. You are no longer in the image of God, you are currency. We cannot help but entwine our concept of dignity with how much a person can do. The sick, the elderly, the disabled, the neurodivergent, my sweet cousin on the autism spectrum. We tend to assign a lesser social value to those whose, quote, doing cannot be enslaved in a given output. We should look to them as sacred guides out of the bondage of productivity. Instead, we withhold social status and capital. We neglect to acknowledge that theirs is a liberation that we can learn from. And so she invites us to learn from it, to learn from a slowness that is not because we are worth less, but perhaps because some of us have learned more about what is really important. And I like the way she writes about this, this idea of our time as currency, or busyness as currency. Not just that our time is, but that if we're busy, then we kind of fall into this kind of consumeristic idea of we become currency. One more quote, she quotes from Howard Thurman, who says, "One could not begin the cultivation of the prayer life at a more practical point than deliberately to seek each day and several times a day a lull in the rhythm of daily doing, a period when nothing happens that demands active participation. This moment of pause, this moment of rest has its own magic." And Valters Paintner writes that there is no other adequate substitute, no caffeinated beverages or other stimulants, no sleep deprivation techniques can offer us the grace that a restful pause. And so as we move into that space today, of course, she reminds us of the biblical call to pause. The idea of Sabbath is supposed to be baked into the ways of God's people. And as we practice Sabbath together, it is with anticipation, not that we're just taking a breather so that we can go do the real work, but that we are actually doing work, that God created rest on the seventh day. That was one of the gifts of God, and we are receiving that. And so we'll do a few of the activities today, kind of thinking about what the biblical call to rest looks like. But before we do those, any thoughts or any questions or comments before we jump into some of the activities?
I was thinking about my inactive life, that I think in some ways I'm busy if I decide I have to keep track of the election and the world affairs. And it's easy for your mind to be so it's not at rest.
That's a good point. Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't need to mean physical activity. It can be as simple as, well, we've mentioned this a couple times, right? The monkey mind of just bouncing around and never following one path because we think of so many things all at once. So that's good suggestion. Good reminder, Martha. Other thoughts or questions or ideas from this?
Sometimes a pause can bring reflection
Yeah, right.
towards future
Mm-hmm.
thoughts or events.
Sure.
I was just thinking about Daniel and the way he talks sometimes about his physical, you know, the fact that the work that he does is physical and is, you know, he sees his body as kind of a commodity, or feels like his employer sees his body as a commodity. And if he doesn't have that physical capability, he doesn't have that worth.
That's right. Yeah.
And
Yeah. If he's gets sick or he, you know,
gets hurt,
gets twist an ankle or something. Yeah. Well, I know we've talked about that before too, is, you know, therefore he doesn't tend to want to rest and relax in ways that are physically demanding, right?
Right, his climbing and
climbing and bike riding and those kind of things. That's right. And I think about, you know, those of us who sit a lot for a living, those are the things that get us, you know, give us rest, is to do something different.
Yeah, definitely.
There's another
I
question.
was thinking about your rest on the airplane,
Yes.
but it's really a job to get to the airport.
I know.
Yeah, right.
First half of it, I'm exhausted from
Sit and rest.
taking off my shoes and taking off my belt and taking off all the.
For those who have people who drive them to the airport and people who pick them up at the airport. They don't have problems that people who actually have to park
Have
there.
to park, yeah.
have, you know.
Yeah, well, park and then take the bus, and then, yeah, that has been nice. Kimberly has been able to, I've been able to schedule it on days off so far. I've got some more travel coming up. I'm sure one of these days I'm gonna have to figure something else out, cause it's stressful, right? And it's rushing and it's hurry and,
Then they put you in a parking lot to wait.
that's right.
Right.
That's right, yeah. Yeah, it is. It's like you get in, you wait in traffic, to get there. And then you finally get dropped off or get where you need to be. And then you hurry up and get to the next thing to check your baggage. And you've got to wait there. And then you check your bag. And then you hurry up to get to the security. And then you wait there. And then you've got to rush through the security. And then you run to the next, to the wherever your plane is loading. And so it's like all this kind of so yeah, for the first half hour of it, it's just kind of all right, slow down and if you've got to squeeze a meal in there especially on a layover or something, it is a busyness.
Is there still a cutoff age that you can leave your shoes on?
I think so. I don't remember what it is, but I believe there is.
Kind of age where you can leave what?
Your shoes on.
Oh.
You don't have to take your shoes off.
I know I don't have to anymore.
Okay, Marcia has reached that age. She's there.
Well, you can see through here.
I wear them, if I have to take them off, I can.
Yes, I wear these. These are the ones I wore because if they're slip on, slip off, they're easy to
Yeah.
get on off in a hurry. Well, here's a question she asks. What are the ways you push forward in your life, even when tired or depleted?
You just do it if you have to.
Yeah. I think a couple weeks ago, you talked the mom need, right? I mean, if the kids are screaming, you're not saying, this is my Sabbath. Right? I mean,
Well, and
right? You're not gonna tell them to,
Even being sick. when you're a parent
That's
is
right.
sometimes
Yep.
not an
That's right.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's
So-
a little harder to have those pause moments when your kids are little.
Yeah.
mhm.
Well, I think that's it, we tend to, realize a lot of people make demands of us, whether they're 2-year-olds or not. There are lots of, significant, I know some of y'all are caretakers for older folks, and you said you were taking a friend, and so there are other ways that, those demands are real, and so, it's not like you can just say, sorry, I got a Sabbath today, you gotta figure out your own meal, so.
Let's get them about time.
Is it your time?
Yeah.
All right, well, I'll tell you what you can do on the ride, Pat, we're gonna
Is this
do.
part of what we're doing today?
Yes, so, Luke, and you've got the book, so you can see it too.
Yes.
We're gonna do the Lectio Divina, so you can use that tonight when you get home, so.
Thank you.
Has the book been good? Have you enjoyed having your own copy?
Yes, yeah.
There's a ton more in there that we can't get to, that you're probably discovering.
And I didn't get to a lot of that, but it was good to see the overall idea of what she's doing.
Yeah.
I've started, I just am
Okay,
not
say-
caught up yet.
What's that, Margaret?
I started reading it, but I haven't caught up yet.
Yeah, well, that introduction is like half the book. It's a long chunk at the beginning, so,
Well,
Yeah.
I read this chapter.
you did read this one?
Yes.
Yeah. So, if you read it then,
Last week she gave us these and I didn't know we were supposed to bring them.
oh,
back.
yeah,
Colors,
that's
But I
beautiful.
didn't get all of mine finished.
Yes. Did anybody else bring one back?
You too busy.
Bring it.
Well,
I'm still coloring.
Uh-huh.
we were supposed to relax when we did this. But I did, but I had the television on.
There's things that you can do.
You could finish it tonight with red and blue crayons.
Yeah.
She watched Murder, She Wrote.
Murder, she wrote. Oh. Everybody's watching something and it seems like there's always somebody going after somebody else. Like, is that relaxing for you? Cause it sounds like somebody's always getting shot. So.
All right, she's watching, what'd she say, Blacklist?
Blacklist, that's what it is, yeah. I don't know.
Gunsmoke.
What's that? Gunsmoke, yeah, another place where people get shot at all the time. Okay, so what we're gonna do is Lectio on Luke 21. And this is, the time when Jesus was, in the kind of the final week of his life as he's, spending time in Jerusalem. And so I'll read the Lectio, and I went ahead and wrote our things up here. I don't know, I'm sure we'll see if it makes it, through a couple few more weeks, with the Sojourners class in here too. But these are the four movements, if you remember, that she invites us to, for the Lectio. The first one is the settling and shimmering. This is when we kind of just get quiet, get in a place of settled in, and then hear the passage and just kind of what shimmers for you in that. And I'll guide us through that, but I'm just kind of giving you an overview reminder. I don't know, you probably can't see it. Oh, it's not even showing up. Susan, can you walk over the board and say something and see if it shows up on Margaret's screen?
Hey, Al, there we go. Oh, it's a bit.
It cut your head off though, and it's whited out.
Right. It's
I'll
all
be,
right.
I'll be leading you through it anyway, Margaret, but
That's fine.
I could send her a picture, maybe, if,
a picture of it,
let's
okay.
see if I have.
Or I
it.
I
can
mean,
imagine.
it
I
is
can
the same. It's the same that's in the book, so you've seen it and you have it there too, but the second one is savoring and stirring. What is stirring within you as you hear it a second time? And then what might you savor? Is there something that you would kind of hold on to? Like you maybe hold a piece of well, our favorite in this course is clearly chocolate. So a piece of chocolate, like leave it in your mouth just a little bit longer, right? Because you can kind of savor that flavor. And then movement 3, oratio, what is God saying to you? How are you being summoned? And then how might the passage invite you to serve in this space? And then the fourth movement is again a slowing, just to kind of contemplate it, contemplatio, and so a slowness and stillness, which obviously fits well for this week. So I'll do 4 readings of this passage from Luke 21, and may it be a time of new reflection and thoughtfulness on what's probably a familiar text. So begin maybe with a few deep breaths. Make sure you're comfortable in your chair. As you hear these words, I invite you to think about what might be shimmering for you. Every day Jesus was teaching in the temple, and at night he would go out and spend the night on the Mount of Olives, as it was called. And all the people would get up early in the morning to listen to him in the temple. Read it again. Ask yourself, is there something that you would savor? Or perhaps is there something that is stirring in you as you hear it a second time?
Can I find a seat when I get there?
Every day Jesus was teaching in the temple, and at night he would go out and spend the night on the Mount of Olives, as it was called. and all the people would get up early in the morning to listen to him in the temple. Okay, is there a word? We'll pause between the two and the three. Is there a word or a phrase that shimmered for you, or an image? I love your image of the busyness of the temple. I got to get there early enough to get a good seat to hear Jesus. It's like the airport once again. Um, How
I
did
can
you
see
get-
all these people getting up early.
yeah.
Yeah, I
Hard
think
for me to get up early anymore.
Yeah.
that mountain is very appealing.
Mm-hmm.
Nice you would go out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mount Olives is kind of across the valley from the temple, and so he could see the temple as he was praying, very likely.
You try to imagine Jesus being up there by himself.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's not a big mountain, is it?
No, have you been there?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, tell us what you remember. Have you been there too, Margaret?
No,
You've not, tell us what you remember of it.
Well, it's just a hill with a lot of olive trees all over it. And it takes 20 minutes to walk from the Mount Olives down to the valley up to the southern steps of the temple, which I assume is where Jesus spoke,
Mhm.
would have been on the southern steps.
Mhm.
And, but no, over there, it's just all rocks, Tom. I mean, yes, there is a deep valley, but if you can walk from the top of it over to the 20 minutes, it's not a long walk.
So it's less than Blue Mountain, for instance.
Yeah.
It's not
It's
even
probably
that-
very similar.
Is
I mean, that, of course, you've got, Jerusalem there. And so, and there is a big valley. I mean, there's 3 valleys around Jerusalem.
Mhm.
But you come in, so you do have to go down into a valley first and then up to the steps. I would wonder what was Jesus thinking as he walked from up there down.
Mhm.
And we had a prayer time in the Mount of Olives. And we sat around some of the oldest trees in history that are still alive, still alive.
Yeah.
So,
How did it feel like when Jesus had been there?
that's always wonderful.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm walking where Jesus walked.
Yeah.
But it does put you in a setting where where you have to think about Jesus and what he would have done and how he would have done it. So,
like the sequoias and the redwoods, the oldest trees in history.
and the olive trees are not large trees.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Very different from the redwoods.
Yeah, they're kind of like apple tree size or something.
Yeah.
But
They're not
And
large.
I have a question about what Jesus might be thinking about on the mountain. Certainly he can see the temple, so he can reflect on his audience. But would he like to have some time without the people? More or less to quietly speak to God, recharge his devotion.
Right. And that's what it sounds like those times on the nights on the Mountain of Olives, there was some of that. It sounded like there was definitely some recharging. I think you're right, Margaret? Because he knows the crush that's coming the next morning, early in the morning. People beat Tom to the best seats. And so, yeah, I think there's definitely a rush. And it's kind of in this, contrast, I guess is a good word, to the quietness of the Mount of Olives. Yeah. And so back and forth he goes every day.
Even when we were there, the Mount of Olives was a quiet place.
Was it? No,
Mhm.
I would have assumed not. I would assume it'd be, tourist stuff and people.
Not really.
Yeah.
Mm.
You buy a T-shirt at the top that says, "I climbed the Mount of Olives," and all.
Yes. Now there'll be every place else.
Yeah, not there, not
Oh,
there.
no.
That's good. I'm glad for that, protection of that.
Talking about trees, two of mine are blooming.
I know.
Oh, yes.
Bradford pears just started.
Yeah, mine too.
Mhm. Sure enough, there's 20 degrees later on this week, 20s, not 20, but 27 or
I
something.
was thinking about bringing my snow shovel.
Mhm. For the Bradford pears. When they start dropping.
Use it.
Yeah.
You're just gonna leave it for somebody else to use.
Oh. All right, well, let's read a couple more. I like the kind of pausing to play with this passage a little bit and to remember, and for us, the rest of us to imagine Marcia walking back and forth from the Mount of Olives to the southern steps. But now let's read it a third time, and this time let's speak to the text, right? What are the things that it summons us to do, and how might we respond to it? How might we serve in response? And so as I hear it, let's pause a little bit to say, now what does this have to do with us, right? Sometimes the language of Lectio Divina is what, so what, and now what? And this is the now what. What does this have to do with us? Every day Jesus was teaching in the temple, and at night he would go out and spend the night on the Mount of Olives, as it was called. And all the people would get up early in the morning to listen to him in the temple. Is there a now what that you would share with us?
There's a sense of, the rhythm of the day and
Mhm.
how, going from work to rest to, and back. But it's kind of affirming that is something that Jesus did too. And,
Right.
yeah.
Right. A reminder that it's not just that us in our weakness need to rest, but Jesus in his fullness chose to rest.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I think it's amazing that we know about it. I don't know that that has anything to do with that, but
Yeah.
if people hadn't gone and listened and yeah, it's just,
Well, I think teaching for a whole day would drain some strength too.
Mhm. Mhm. That's a good point. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. It's a good idea, Margaret, to imagine his weariness after a full day of teaching, especially some of the teaching he did. We know he was getting blasted by the Pharisees,
Mhm.
the temple leaders, and it was being called on regularly for healing and for so some people really wanted him there, a lot of people really didn't want him there. That push and pull had to be exhausting.
sounds like today.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah,
Patience was tested.
yeah, right. What about a final reading, and maybe just make this an, exit ramp. If the first movement's an entrance ramp to the text, make this an exit ramp as we hear it again, and then maybe contemplatio. We contemplate one phrase or one image in our hearts. I'll leave some extra silence at the end of it so we can kind of spend that time in slowing and stilling. Every day Jesus was teaching in the temple, and at night he would go out and spend the night on the Mount of Olives, as it was called. And all the people would get up early in the morning and listen to him in the temple.
And maybe there were soldiers there that watched to make sure none of the people got rowdy or tried to make trouble or,
Right? And what would Jesus have been thinking as he moved back and forth from the nights on the Mount of Olives into the temple? He'd be wondering, is this the moment when they come with the knives and the clubs and the swords?
I wonder who the audience really was, because not a lot of people were allowed into the temple.
Right, that's a good point. Yep, there'd be the different courts with
That's the
different.
reason why I said the southern steps, because maybe the people
Yeah, that's a
were
good
gathered out on the southern steps
Yeah.
and could hear,
Yeah,
but
they were loud, right?
most of the people in the temple would have been men, I
Uh-huh.
believe,
Uh-huh.
and then the
Mhm.
women could gather, I guess, on the side.
Yeah, yeah. There was
But
a court, right? There was a court of women that could, just inside, but not all the way. It's like different levels, all the way to the Holy of Holies, different levels.
And I can't imagine a Gentile being among that audience.
Right, and that, exactly, they would be some of the furthest out, right? They were.
But I don't know who his audience really would have been.
Uh-huh.
And I'm
Wanted to
trying to
hear-
get,
What's that?
People that wanted to hear his message.
Yeah, right? What were you saying, Margaret?
I'm trying to get the two settings to interpenetrate somehow. That he can carry some of the thoughts up to the mountain, but then come back and take something of his meditation or prayer or whatever rest that he has and mingle it with the teaching.
Yeah, no, hang on to that, Margaret. We're gonna do something a little bit different, than we've done in the past. And I think what your insight there, Margaret, I think might carry over and fold over into the next thing too. So we've been doing what we call Lectio Divina, or divine reading. We're gonna do, now what's called Visio Divina, or a divine scene, or a holy scene. And so, I'm gonna show a picture here in a moment. And what we're gonna do, part of the reason I wanted to write these up on the board is, we're gonna do exactly the same 4 movements with a picture. And so it's a time of praying through a picture, kind of a visual representation of how we pray. And it is a picture that is, Actually, she has some beautiful pictures in the book, but they didn't necessarily translate well to the screen in here. But this is a picture that I found this morning that I feel, is perhaps a little, well, I won't read anything into it for you all. I'll let you all, do some holy praying through it and holy seeing. And so, I will, invite you to remain in kind of a still place and a settled place. And then what I will do is, open up the picture. And then as you see it, I invite you to look for, in the same way, things that might shimmer for you. We'll do all 4 of the movements before we kind of discuss and talk about it this time.
And you will share yours at the end,
My what?
what you was thinking.
My shimmering? Yeah. Well, yeah. You might. Okay, I want to keep like giving you hints of what you're gonna see. I'm not gonna do it. All right, let's make sure you can get the right thing open. So share. Here it is. Can you see it, Margaret?
Yes.
Okay. So spend a few moments just quietly settling into the picture. And I invite you to consider what shimmers for you. Again, thinking quietly, we'll talk about it here after a few minutes, but at this point, just spend time in silence. What do you see? Picture today.
Are his eyes open or closed in the picture? I can't really see.
Under his skin.
That's true. His hands are folded.
Yeah, y'all are doing it right. Here's some of the prompts. Begin to open your imagination to memories, other images that stir in your response. Allow this place and these symbols or colors to unfold, open to you other connections. Notice if there are any feelings stirring within you and connect to your breath. Making room for whatever wants to move through you in this time.
It reminds me of a scene in the Grand Tetons where you can, as you walk the trail up Cascade Canyon, there's a place where a huge rock slide occurred. And it's very rough to walk through and uneven. It may have been altered since I was there last, but because there was a big renovation of the trail. And so if you were at that place, there would be a little lake on the right side. And you would see maybe a marmot or squirrel and
Or Pika.
Pika, yeah, I've seen a Pika. Yeah. And
Well, as the artwork moves your heart, begin to listen for how you're being invited into this moment. You all have already done that well. I'm imagining how it connects to other parts of your life. Is there a space for God's call to move in you as you look at the picture today? Maybe
There's so much beauty and quiet.
Yes. Yeah.
There's also a roughness, almost like a cross behind him. I guess I'm too imaginative.
Wow. I think that's beautiful. Yeah. I don't know exactly where you're thinking, but I see a space here that almost looks like the cross.
I was thinking in back of where he was sitting.
Oh, wow.
Mine's in back, right?
Yeah.
There's a haze like you
Mhm.
see in the valley.
Mhm,
Yeah,
mhm. Yes,
right.
Is a haze the same as fog?
Well,
Mm,
it could be partly fog and partly exhaust fumes.
yeah.
I know that's terribly realistic, but you know.
Thanks for that image.
Yeah.
Now we're all
Yeah.
smelling exhaust in our minds.
Be dust.
well, there's definitely a cloud.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
Yeah. So as we've seen what is shimmering for us and we've savored and invited God to stir in us, perhaps we've asked how we're being summoned. And so now I invite you to close your eyes. Sink into a stillness. Allow your breath to slow. Maybe as your eyes remain closed, there are images from the picture that continue, or memories that it stirred, or maybe even an image of where it's inviting you to go next. How your life is like a work of art and how you are called to claim your place as an artist of this masterpiece. Wondering where in your life you're called to bring more color, more mystery. Paul talks about the eyes of the heart. Even though your eyes are closed, I invite you to look with the eyes of your heart on this text and this image. And ask, how might you be able to fast? Fast from speed and fast from rushing. How might you go with Jesus to the top of the Mount of Olives? How might you, like he, embrace his slowness and pausing each evening as the sun goes down, walking those 20 minutes into a quiet space and receiving the rest and the Sabbath needed to then return to the next day. As you are ready to open your eyes, say a prayer of gratitude to yourself. Turn into this room and this shared space.
Makes me think, I wonder, have you all had a feeling that God was with you at some time?
Mhm.
And it made me think that when my twins were just 2 or something like that, we lived on Garing's farm out by Lancaster, and It was a beautiful place. Anyway, one night I walked out and the sun had gone down and the moon was beautiful. I went out and stood by the fence. And I always think of that. Just something came over me. And I wondered, I told somebody that wasn't much of a believer in that, and he said, well, Christians always have feelings.
There's a beautiful.
But haven't you had moments when you felt God?
Yes,
Yes.
yeah. I think it's
I
cool
wish
that,
there were more of them.
well, I think it's cool that as you hear this, you can go back to that place, right? As you
Yeah.
see this picture and
Yeah.
hear these, you can go back to that. And I think that's what Valters Paintner is inviting us to do, is really say, this doesn't just have to be one moment, but if we open ourselves up to, I mean, you chose to walk out to the fence that night, and there was
Yeah.
something that you received in the walking.
And I'll never forget it.
Yeah. Flannery O'Connor wrote a short story called Revelation, which it reminds me of your story, Dixie. This part doesn't remind me of you because there was a woman who was just kind of mean, and first part of the story, she's at a doctor's waiting room and she's making fun of everybody and she's, condescending, and, before the end of it, a teenager just gets tired of it and throws a book across the room and hits her in the head. And so at the end of it, she's feeling all, self-righteous and how could somebody do that to me? And so she goes outside in the evening and there's this kind of beautiful stretch of color across the sky. And she goes like kind of out by the fence and out by the back part of the farm. And she imagines this kind of a long stretch of a bridge into heaven. And what shocks her is that the people who are leading the way are exactly the same people that she was making fun of, right?
Oh,
The
that's
people
good.
who are the down and out, and the people who are, the pimply teenager and all that kind of stuff. And then in the back of the line, kind of grumbling are people like her. And so it becomes for her, I'm not saying anything about you, Dixie, but just that revelation that she found in that moment, I thought of that story with your, we have those moments, right? Where we can say, all right, there's times where God, are you out there? I don't know. But then there's these moments we can look back on. Yeah.
Well, there was one time in Lancaster that was a Lutheran church I went to there.
Yeah.
But we had a missionary come speak, and we had girls from schools all around there, Horton and different places. And I worried about that, that it was, I kept praying and praying and praying. And all of a sudden in my mind, something said, oh, ye of little faith.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah. Did I think that, or where did that come from?
Yeah, right.
I don't know.
And I think, right, which is another story in which somebody went up into the side of a mountain and as Elijah thought that maybe God was in the fire and the earthquake and the wind and all of this, and God wasn't in all of that. God was in the still small voice, or sometimes translated, the sound of sheer silence. So, any other thoughts about the picture before I close it so we can see each other better?
Well, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm sure this is not what the Mount of Olives look like, but,
I love the light. I see the light rays where there's,
yeah,
whatever, but I see light.
right.
Yeah, that's what impressed me was
On that trail to the Teton Valley there,
Yeah.
Cascade Canyon, there's a point of inspiration, they call it. Point of inspiration. And it's very similar to that, where there's this outcropping of the rock, and you oversee the Jackson Valley, Jackson Hole, all the way from, as far north as you can possibly see. Down to Jackson City on the south.
Wow.
And it's probably 40 miles.
Wow. Huh.
And, it's not that hazy.
Yeah, yeah,
And,
right. No, in the Rockies, that would make sense. It would be a lot, which is why I think part of why I was drawn to it is a memory that I had in the Smokies, in the Smoky Mountains, because that's exactly what it looks like in the Smokies, with that haze kind of rising up, especially in the morning and the evening. And then kind of the green on the edges. But there's a spot it's actually on the Appalachian Trail called Charlie's Bunyan. And it's a kind of an rock outcropping like this. And it kind of drew me to this. So yeah, again, this is probably not exactly what the Mount of Olives like, and it may not mean to be the Mount of Olives. It could well be just one of the many times throughout his ministry that it said Jesus went up into the hills to pray. I mean, this could
He
be.
almost looked real.
That's right. I mean, it's a very realistic look as opposed to some. I found some, but they looked almost too, Sunday school curriculum. They just didn't quite look real enough, and so I thought this is like you could be walking in the Smokies or in the Tetons, and all of a sudden there's Jesus just sitting there praying on the side of the church. So.
Well, I'm so glad this church, like you go to the mountains, and I don't think kids get enough of outdoors.
Amen.
Right.
Amen. Don't get me started on that sermon. I could preach that all the rest of the day. Any other thoughts on the picture before we close it?
He looks very deep in thought, and I'm sure it's in prayer.
Yeah.
But he's a part of the beauty.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Huh.
But yet it's almost as though what we see on the outside, I am picturing opening up within him, inside his
Yeah. Huh.
thoughts.
Yeah, I like that. I hadn't noticed until you said that, but it's almost as if, you see a little bit of a rock outcropping here and a little bit over here. He's like a rock outcropping, right?
Yeah.
It's like the same kind of
Part of
folds of
that.
his robe.
There's a rock to his right that
Uh-huh.
you can almost imagine features.
Oh, yeah.
The fellow up there, you can't see my hand.
Oh,
Higher.
yeah. Higher up here.
Right there, that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And somebody made a comment about his hands clasped. I think there's something meaningful, right? That's how we teach our children, right? To pray. Put your hands
I
together.
think that little rock figure there to his right looks kind of like Pooh Bear, don't you?
It's like one of those exercises where, they say to count all of the faces.
Oh, right. Yep. Right behind highlights. And then, yeah, whether his eyes are closed or open, I think I appreciate the image that, something's opening up within him. So.
Well, have you ever seen the picture of Jesus where when you stare at it, his eyes open and looks directly at you?
No.
Yeah.
That sounds a little freaky.
Pictures in the museum where the eyes follow you.
Follow you, right? Yeah. Well, I just wanted to do two activities today. I know that there's 7 of them in here, but I thought we could take a little bit deeper dive into a couple of those lectios. And then just as you head out, you've put together kind of these creative rituals, and you made your altar, and you kind of decorated your altar, and you spent time kind of getting it ready. One of the things that she suggests is think about how you might use that altar as a Sabbath time, and spend some time. And so thinking about what your Sabbath may look like this week, maybe what music you might have as you gather in that place. Is there a certain action that you might incorporate? She suggests even turning off your computer placing your phone in a special box so that you can unplug from technology. Get those things out of the way, because how quickly we just, we're looking right to, I don't know where mine is, but we look to the phone pretty quickly.
The off button works,
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, turn it off.
I keep my phone off most of the time.
Yeah.
I do turn it on in the morning, but anyway, so if anybody wants to get me, they call
They call Chuck, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My Facebook went away for a while this morning.
They all did.
Oh,
Facebook and Instagram were all down this morning.
Wow.
There was
Yeah,
because there were
is it
a
outage?
ton of people that thought it was that they were hacked. But sure enough, the whole thing went away.
And I missed it.
You missed the whole thing, Marcia.
Well, my computer's in the shop
Oh, yes.
because, I thought it needed a tune-up.
Mm-hmm.
It's been slower, opening up and booting up.
Oh, yeah.
And, so I took it out to the shop to get tuned up and
Yeah.
the AT&T, had a problem.
Oh, that's right. That's
A
right.
week ago.
Yeah.
Yes.
And-
Yeah,
I
right,
was
right.
part of that. My phone.
Well, that's
was
right,
out
because you
all morning.
texted, have you all been unable to text or call? And it was AT&T, but not, and a few others, but
Right.
a lot
And
did.
they were carriers that were using
Right.
AT&T.
Oh, they were on AT&T's network. Gotcha. Yeah.
Verizon.
Or-
and,
Yeah,
My
well, right. I think those users were trying to contact
Oh.
people on
AT&T. Yeah,
AT&T.
yeah. What were you saying, Margaret?
Oh, it probably would have been good for me to have mine off longer. I'd have substitute.
Yeah, it's funny. It's been a long time since I've been on Facebook. I tend to just not jump on it very regularly, but I got on it last night, and then this morning it broke. So I think it's about how often I need to be on Facebook. I think I just need to stay off of it. So
You were the one butterfly.
the
that,
one
like,
butterfly
landed
that
on-
landed, the
Just
straw that broke the camel's back. I broke Facebook. All right, well, let's do our closing blessing. Any other final comments or thoughts before we close?
That might make an interesting meditation.
Mhm.
I broke Facebook.
I broke Facebook, that's right.
All right.
Well, this hasn't got anything to do with the lesson, but is the world in such a mess today because God gave us freedom?
I mean, yes. I mean, in general, right? I mean, I think the mess that we see is not God's mess, it's our mess. And so I think, I don't know, I'd love to hear what other people have to say too, but I think that free will allows us to do some pretty horrible things to each other.
Well, it starts out with the sons, fighting each other, killing each other.
That's right. Cain and Abel. Yeah.
So, immediately after they had this, well, they didn't know at that point, what freedom they might have. but,
Right. Yeah. Yeah, they were still trying to figure out who God was.
Yeah.
And yet it's an openness. And I would also say the world is as beautiful as it is because God's given us free will. And so we create exquisite music and we create beauty. And so it is both. But I think it is
It's
because
so amazing, we live where there's not that much hate. Isn't it wonderful?
yeah.
There's some out there, but.
Yeah, and it is. Yeah.
Well, the screen, shot on my computer is a picture that I took in the redwoods. In what the parks are called Muir Woods.
Yeah.
And, so it's, redwood trees. And we saw sequoias.
Wow, yeah.
I never realized sequoias had that deep cut carved in the, bark. Just very impressive difference from lots of other trees.
Yeah.
You see deciduous trees aren't that deep.
Right, right.
Of course, they're such huge trees.
Yeah.
Trees are so beautiful.
They are.
And
Oh,
they're so artistic.
Right, yeah.
Well, but we only live, all of us, not more than 100 years,
Yeah,
maybe a few people. But why wouldn't we want to get along?
Right.
I don't understand.
preach.
Greed and.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think. Yeah, and we have this mistaken idea that for us to matter, right? There's a sermon from a couple weeks ago. If we matter, we need to make sure we put others down. To say, I need to matter more than you, as opposed to lifting others up, say, I don't feel like I matter, therefore, if I can step on you, then maybe I'll matter a little more,
Mhm.
which I think is the wrong way to do it. But many don't.
I think we ought to add to our chart, the, thing you said Sunday about, what am I saying hello to? and what
Oh,
am I saying
yeah.
Goodbye to.
Yeah.
He mentioned it at 8:38,
Mhm.
and, I really like that.
Yeah. And that was from Travis Norval, pastor up in Minnesota,
mm,
speakers. And
Was he reading this book too?
he was not, no, that's why I think the Holy Spirit's just kind of poking me on this, kind of the same idea, because they come from completely different places all around.
mhm.
I'm reading a book by Adam Hamilton,
Uh-huh,
and he's the senior pastor at Resurrection Church.
uh-huh,
And in Olathe.
uh-huh,
I really like him.
yeah.
It's a good book. And so I'm reading it slowly, but.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It's at a point right now, it's been talking about the 10 Commandments and the third commandment on not holding any of the gods before me.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of a possessive thought by God.
Right.
Mhm.
We used to go there to their Christmas.
And
Oh, that's right, I think we took a church group over there one time to their Christmas thing. Yeah, it's pretty good.
I
yeah,
don't know why, but he just talks.
Yeah.
He doesn't. But he always has a good message, I think.
Yeah, he's great. He's a great preacher.
And so are you.
So,
You do matter to us now.
oh, well, thank you. Thank you.
Right.
Well, Adam's one of the best. He's definitely,
But I think
Great
the
leader.
Church of the Resurrection over there's done a lot for Kansas City.
Mhm.
There's so many people go and hear the word.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's what we need around here, right?
Right, that's right. Yeah, I mean, I think it's different than we would do it, but I think that's what the church needs, is a lot of different ways to teach the gospel and spread the gospel is do it. If we all did it the same way, then it wouldn't all reach the same people.
Yeah.
But I think we have different people that want something different.
I thought that out at the pavilion
Mhm.
might be a good place to have a great big gathering
Oh, yes.
of people, you know, for some holiday or something.
Well, so, this isn't the pavilion, but out at Baker Wetlands is where we're gonna have our sunrise service for Easter. Which is a little bit different.
So bring your swimsuit.
So, right, exactly. We're gonna go swim after some geese. And, no, they're at the Discovery Center. There's kind of a, high, I don't know if you all seen it, where you climb the steps up to a little overlook. And, yeah, somewhere over there is where we'll do the service. And so I don't know how many people are gonna be joining us at
Where
7 in the
is
morning.
that?
Where is it?
Mhm.
South of town, if you know where the Menards is, you basically go straight south from there. There's a road that leads right back up and over the highway, and then you're on the.
I think maybe I know where that.
Mhm. Okay, well, let me read our final blessing and enter into the next week of stillness and pausing. Holy One, you call us to the lavish gift of rest. Support us as we lay aside our tasks, our plans, our worries, and turn to you with open hearts. Whisper to us in the silence of your love for us, simply for who we are. Bless us with the deep renewal that rest brings and transform our daily patterns so that we might weave Sabbath into every day. Slow us down when our minds race, when our calendars overflow with demands, when our hearts flutter with overwhelm. Hold us in that holy pause. Reveal to us again the beauty of this world, of steam rising from coffee, of the dog's pleading eyes, of the rose blooming. Help us to see how everything in creation takes its time, no rushing, no pushing. In that open space, gather all of our scattered parts together to the wholeness of who we were created to be. Amen.
One of my
Thank you all.
neighbors brought me a basket of pansies, yellow ones.
Yeah.
They are the prettiest things. I had to bring them in the other night.
Oh, right.
Oh,
That's right.